on this episode of the Haunted Objects Podcast.
The crazy thing about this is that this symbol must be very, very important because it is placed directly on your forehead.
Yeah, a place of reverence.
And people who have worn this thing have felt that part of their head start to heat up. They felt a strange pressure on that part. And then they feel like they're leaving their bodies.
Yeah. So it all starts, you're saying, in
with
that
the
spot.
symbol.
Like it spreads out on the face.
If we can figure out what this symbol means, I think that's the key to unlocking the mask.
Yeah.
And guess what?
What?
We figured it out!
From deep inside the mysterious archives of the Newkirk Museum of the Paranormal, it's the Haunted Objects Podcast.
Dana, I feel like I haven't seen you in a week.
Yeah.
We've been very busy.
Yeah.
You've been doing Magic of the Month, and Carl and I, we had to take a special trip out to Maine.
You did.
To pick up the vessels.
And how was that?
Insane.
Was
Unbelievable. The first time you saw them, when we brought them back, it was probably the same as our reaction when we walked into that workshop.
I can't even imagine.
And now we just have to fill them. We need your help with that, by the way. We're going on tour. Come see us on tour, newkirktour.com. Tickets are going fast. You can help us create a haunted object. That's the whole goal of the tour. So that's what we've been doing. So I feel like we're having our first conversation in a week.
It's nice to see you.
It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you around town.
You know who it's really nice to see, though?
It is very nice to see.
Our producer, Connor Randall.
Back in action.
I'm back. Thank you guys.
Back.
Thanks for covering for me last episode. You did a great job.
Everyone's going to get the Barry White edition where Connor's
my voice is not 100% back yet, but I feel great.
You should keep it
totally
like this.
Better. So.
Yeah.
It sounds very sexy.
I feel like the comment section's going to get thirsty again.
People are thirsting over him every time.
Okay. The comment section gets a little steamy.
If you had white makeup on and a slick back green wig, this is like perfect. They're just throwing it at you.
Are you feeling better?
Yeah, I feel so much better. My fever's gone.
That's great.
I sat in a scary alien room for, 8 days?
Yes.
And so,
With a fever?
Wasn't COVID, wasn't a flu or anything. It was some weird virus, and, went into the ER and stuff, and they took care of me, and I was okay. So
Good.
I got through it. Everything's fine. We're back to work.
We're back.
Did you have any weird dreams while you were up there?
Yes.
You did?
I had a dream that there was a guy holding a sign with red lettering on it that I couldn't make out, and he was standing on a street corner, and he was like pointing at it, and it was like, and I was across the other side of the street, and I was staring at it, and I couldn't figure out what the characters meant.
Did it look like it was
and
like...
it happened. It was like a long
English?
dream.
Weird.
Yeah, it was like symbols, like gobbledygook
okay.
words that I didn't understand, didn't make sense.
Do you think you could pick it out if you ever saw it again?
I would like to think so, but I don't know. Painted on big red letters. So
weird.
Something in your house was trying to tell me something, and then you made the mistake of telling me that you heard a sound in the attic that
Connor.
is above my bed.
Yeah. So we have two attic doors. One is in the garage, and one is in, unfortunately, the room that Connor had an 8-day-long fever dream in, surrounded by bug-eyed aliens.
Have you heard anything above you?
I'm like, Dana's like going like, well, there's somebody up there moving around, and,
I heard
and it goes
something.
The crawl space comes out directly into your room, Connor, in your closet. Yeah. And I look at Dana, I'm like, why are you telling him this right now?
For the
He's
fun.
Stuck in there.
For the adventure. You're like Guillermo del Toro, who's very popular this week because he was doing ghost hunting.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's you, Connor. You could be...
It's you.
Yep. So your guest room was a scary place this week, and my ghost will haunt it in the future, I guess.
We're going to just hear coughing.
And I remember what I told you when I went to bed each night, because I was just all alone up there.
I was going to ask you to say this.
After Dana told me that, I would text him when I was going to bed and be like, good night to Bigfoot, good night to the dolls, good night to the man who lives in the walls.
Oh no!
I'd fall asleep.
That's incredible. I hope that he was like, "Good night, Connor."
Good night. Greg's like, let me know if you hear a cough up above you. Just a casual.
Oh. Well, that's going to be another mystery to solve.
I mean, we've never been in the attic. There could be
That's
a man
true.
up
We don't
there.
really spend any time up there. There's somebody living there.
Yeah.
We have a mystery that we did solve. That one we can solve later.
Okay.
But we have a mystery that we have solved that has been hanging over the museum for almost a decade at this point, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And
Dang.
it is so crazy. I cannot believe it's so strange that we're finding out what we're finding out about this mask.
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're talking about an item that showed up in 2017 to the post office box and has been bothering us ever since. Today we're discussing the Restless Face.
In the spring of 2017, paranormal researchers Greg and Dana Newkirk received a strange, unmarked package in the mail. Inside the box, tucked beneath a note that read, "I'm sorry," was a striking wooden mask with a powerful sulfuric odor. The face's flushed complexion only accentuated its bulging, hypnotic eyes, and as the Newkirks leaned closer, they noticed a mysterious serpentine symbol carved into its forehead. While the mask's entrancing gaze begged for a host, those who attempted to don the disguise for more than a brief moment were overcome with an inexplicable sensation of force, like invisible tendrils tugging at their very souls, as if to tear their minds from their bodies. Is this mask a relic of an ancient ritual? A cursed object intended to ensnare the unwary? Or is it something else entirely? Only one thing is for certain. If you dare to gaze through the eyes of the face, you may never see the world the same way again.
Do you remember the day that the Restless Face showed up in the post office box?
I feel like I don't, and it's probably because I don't know. I don't remember much about it because maybe I have like stuffed it away in my memory somewhere, so I don't have to think too much about it.
When it first showed up, I remember the box. It was one of those deals where we always know it's going to be good.
Yeah.
We talked about this on the Mailbag podcast.
Yeah.
We always know that something's going to be good when there's no return address on it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It came from Florida. It was postmarked from Florida, if I remember correctly. And we opened it up and were immediately hit with an overpowering odor that smelled
Big stank.
stinky.
Real stank.
Of sulfur, I think.
Yeah.
You know, rotten eggs, you know, kind of farty.
Yeah.
And immediately I thought, oh, well, somebody finally did it. They sent us poop in the mail.
Yeah.
Because I was just waiting for it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. We open this box up and there's like a brown paper bag that's wrapped around it. And when we open
That's also terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
Sending, like, that's the perfect haunted object aesthetic is to, like, put it in a scary old brown paper bag.
Oh, well, the thing about it is you could tell that it had been packaged up pretty quickly.
Okay.
Because
That's right. I remember that. It seemed like it had been thrown in a box.
There wasn't anything else in it. It was wrapped up. It was just this. And at first I was like, because it felt like a bowl. We open it up and there is this bright red mask with like an index card with a quickly scribbled note over the top of it that said, "I'm sorry."
Yes.
And that's exactly what you want to read.
No, you don't. Stinky smells immediately and then just, "I'm sorry."
There was a substance covering most of the mask. It had looked like it had dried. And, you know, we went back and forth about what this could have been. It did smell weird.
Yeah.
It's interesting because while we were doing research for this, Carl brought up it could have been something that was like old muddy water because it smells quite the same way, like old rivers that have like started to dry up. Same kind of deal. So maybe this thing was like pulled up
I mean, it could have been maybe buried in like a river somewhere.
Maybe somebody found it in a river or something.
Yeah.
We don't know.
In magic, if it was a magical thing, there's lots of instances of you bury objects. Sometimes you can bury them or put them in, like moving water is very powerful when it comes to magic practice. If you put something in water that's moving, you have that visual of the water passing through, kind of cleansing it of something. So, I mean, it absolutely could have been buried in a river or a lake.
After we got used to the smell, the immediate thing is...
We never got used to the smell, let's be real.
That's true. The hypnotic gaze of this thing.
Yes.
It's very, very striking. If you're watching the video podcast, you're seeing what it looks like. It is incredibly striking.
Yeah.
An image that sticks in your mind.
Yeah.
For those of you who are listening to the audio podcast, the mask is just about the size of your face.
Yeah.
It's not the type that you would normally see. It doesn't go all the way around your head. It's just a front mask with kind of a latex band around it. The eyes are huge.
They're very large.
They're like bugging out. They're bright white. And there's an expression on this face that almost looks like it is shocked.
Yeah.
The lips are sort of pursed as if we thought for a while maybe it's whistling.
Yeah. It's a super intense expression, and it's sort of off-putting when you see it for the first time.
It's freaky.
It's a little aggressive looking. Like
yes.
And the other thing about it is it's also kind of hard to read because, like I said, it kind of looks aggressive. It looks a little bit exasperated, sort of. It's a strange expression.
And it's bright red.
Yeah, bright red.
So it looks like somebody is upset.
Yeah.
The mask immediately looks angry.
Yes.
We flip the mask around, and I see that the back, there's kind of a patina on the back of it. And you can tell it's made out of a very light wood. We could see that immediately.
Yeah, it's light to hold.
And it looks like the patina on it is where somebody's face would be.
Yeah.
So it looked like it was dirty from somebody's face having been worn. But the strangest thing about it was the symbol carved right where your third eye would be, pressing right up against your forehead. The symbol kind of looks like a squiggly line. And then there's a star and a dot on either side of that line. That to us immediately stuck out as something that could be, magically or ritually significant. Maybe it was a sigil. Could it have been a maker's mark?
Yeah.
Some kind of initial. We didn't know.
It was obviously something that was put there intentionally. Because it wasn't like, if it was a maker's mark also, I could imagine that it might be like at the bottom or the top or the side, but it's something that's directly right above where the third eye would be. And it looked very specific and intentional.
We thought maybe it's a snake.
It definitely looks like a snake.
Or a map, maybe? Could have been a map.
River, yeah. There's been a lot of theories over the years from lots of different kinds of people, and I think those are the two most common, that it sort of looks a bit like a snake, and it sort of also looks a little bit like a river, and potentially something marking two spots along the side of a river.
Yeah. Masks are usually pretty easy to identify. You can even run like a reverse image search on Google and find things that look very similar to it. This one was very difficult. There were things, we've dealt with masks for a long time. So
we have a lot of masks in the museum.
Tons of masks in the collection. They're one of the things that are sent to us quite often.
A lot, quite a bit.
Not quite as many as porcelain clowns.
Yeah, but it makes sense. You've got that personification.
Yeah,
people
they're scary.
Can contribute or attribute the personality to it, which is kind of interesting.
Immediately, I see the expression that's on the face, and I flash back to thinking of the wild man mask that many of the First Nations people of the Pacific Northwest
they're beautiful.
Are familiar with. They have the same kind of pursed lips, looking like it's howling or hooting. Those are iconic in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
And a lot of people believe that what those are, they're Bigfoot, basically. So I was already familiar with that. But there were other things that didn't quite look right. It was the wrong color, the wrong patina. Normally when you see these things, they look like they're made, those types of masks are made out of cedar.
Yes.
This clearly was not cedar.
A lot of them are also multicolored. There's lots of different colors on them. There's sort of just one general color, at least in the ones that I've seen.
We end up posting about this acquisition in the museum. Museum members start to get to work, and they have some ideas of what it could be. I have a couple of them listed here. Ranger Green suggested it could be an indigenous culture, from an indigenous culture here in America, particularly the Cherokee or Iroquois, who have what they call a boogeyman mask or a booger mask. We can put some images of that on screen if you're watching the video podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, look at that. Isn't that
Dang,
cool? That's
so
one of
cool.
the quote-unquote booger masks. It's
I
a
can
red
see,
mask.
Yeah, I can see why people might think that. Maybe it was in process, you know?
For sure.
Unfinished. Wow, that's so cool.
And then we have the Hiotoko mask, known as a fire mask.
I can absolutely see why they would have thought that. The expression on the face of this mask is pretty similar, sort of.
Yeah, and this is Japanese, I believe.
Oh, they're so cool.
Look at them. They
I
look
love
crazy.
that.
You know what that one on the right looks like? It looks like the characters from Mac and Me.
It does. Oh my God.
Doesn't it?
That
They have that
movie-
same face.
Scared the shit out of me when I was a little kid.
Paul Rudd's best film. We thought it could be potentially Japanese. You know, when we realized it wasn't a wild man mask, maybe it was a Japanese mask. It sort of has some of those same things like you saw with the fireman mask.
Yeah.
But it wasn't quite right. No matter what we did, we could not find what this mask was.
It was a bit frustrating for a while. We really sort of jumped around, and the thing is, in that instance, also there are a lot of people who have different ideas about it. So we really kind of were bombarded with lots of different kinds of ideas of where this mask could have potentially came from.
I mean, the thing that we found the most is that a lot of people are afraid of masks.
Yes, I understand that.
That's the thing we discovered.
There's like 5 masks within view of
I
me
know.
right
I can
now.
see like
Yeah.
2 of them in front of
Up
me.
above, you have some.
Oh, yeah.
There's several on the shelf.
Yeah. I actually have a wild man mask right here
Yeah.
from the Pacific Northwest over on the shelf. Yeah, we love masks. And because people are so frightened of masks, we receive a lot of them here at the museum.
Yeah.
Not all of them are spooky. Some of them are quite beautiful. Even the spooky ones are pretty beautiful.
Yeah, I think that innately, like, masks kind of, you can't help but be a little scared of them because their role is to conceal someone's face.
Oh, yes,
So they
that's
give
true.
you that. They give you that sense of they live in the liminal a little bit.
It's called masklophobia, the fear of
Interesting.
masks. The actual name is masklophobia, an extreme and overwhelming fear of masks and costumes. Relatively unknown phobia, but it mostly affects children, although it can also occur in adults. This mask, though, has many other reasons to be afraid of it other than its look, particularly what started to happen to people who dared to wear it. We did clean the substance off. We used Lysol. We
Yes.
made sure that nobody got pink eye after wearing it, which is good.
Yeah.
But something maybe worse started happening to people. The one thing that people started to do is they would start to go into a trance while wearing this mask. We've seen it numerous times.
Yep.
I've worn the mask. It's worked on me. I just kind of go away.
I've seen people who like held it and went, "This is total bull crap," and then they put it on and they astral projected.
I mean, the thing that is common in all of them is that they feel as though they're being pulled out of their bodies
Yeah.
and that something else is trying to get in.
Ugh.
That is a scary thing
Yeah.
to just about anybody, no matter
Sure.
what you believe.
Sure.
The
Especially,
idea that
yeah.
something is trying to remove you from your body. Every time I've seen someone wear that mask, they have talked about that.
Yeah.
Can you think of any particular times?
I mean, I know that like people used to compete with how long they could wear it for. Like
Yes.
there's always been an interesting element with this mask in that if there are people who are using it or we're doing experiments with it, sometimes they're sort of like a repeat offenders. Like they want to come back again and try it again. So it has the kind of, I don't know, it has a bit of a pull on people, I think.
You know who has masklophobia?
Does Keelin have masklophobia?
Is that why Keelan's not here? Her masklophobia?
That could be part of it. She actually is away working on another episode.
Another episode.
You remember the one that we're doing? Well, we can cut this out, but it's the Loch Ness Monster.
The Loch Ness Monster. In the woods, in the lake, in your scuba gear. Keelin's on the hunt, the legend is near. The Loch Ness
Okay. Well, good luck, Keelin. Wherever you are, if you're listening.
If I had some bagpipes, I'd play them for you.
Let us know if you find it. We'll be here.
She was taking it seriously, I'll tell you that.
She is the world's greatest cryptozoologist, so I have full faith and confidence.
Run with it. It's a few episodes down the road. Go with it, Keelin.
Full faith and confidence in Keelin's abilities as the world's greatest cryptozoologist.
She is.
TM. Keelin Matthews.
Keelin Matthews with one T.
Well, then she's going to be glad she's not here for this episode. Her masklophobia won't get crazy. We've talked a little bit about the weird mystery around this mask.
Yeah.
The very scary things that have happened around it.
Yeah.
There's one particular incident that stands out in my mind. It's probably the one that's in yours. Mm-hmm. Is the time we were working on the Haunted Object 3D Scanning Initiative.
Yes.
With our good friend Jason Gowan. If you've watched pretty much any of our projects, you're familiar with Jason. He's been on the podcast before. He's been in Hellier and The Unbinding. We put this guy through a lot. we put poor Jason.
Can Jason Gowan officially get the title of the paranormal,
guinea pig?
Guinea pig, exactly. Guinea pig of the paranormal, Jason Gowan. Poor Gowan is always being I mean, I say poor Gowan, but he loves it.
There's a video that we will show. If you're watching the video podcast, it's there. If you're a member of the museum, you can go watch the full thing. Part of this initiative, which you see a little bit of in our film, The Unbinding, is we're 3D scanning haunted objects from the museum collection. And obviously, we should have known.
Yeah.
We ended up stopping this because things just didn't quite work out right. Shockingly, when you're trying to 3D scan haunted items. One of them was the mask. And I'm 3D scanning something else, and Jason had asked us, what's the deal with this mask? So we give him the backstory. There's a mystery. People who wear it feel like they're being pulled out of their bodies. And he's like, well, I got to try this. I'm game. Can I try it? He's like, what's the longest somebody's worn it? And I was like, I don't know, 3-4 minutes at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
Most people couldn't take it. So he lays down on the couch. He puts the mask on. You and I end up doing our own thing. We're scanning items.
Yeah, he was there. I mean, I went back. I checked on him. Every time I checked on him, he looked weirder and weirder, like he was doing something very strange.
He wasn't saying anything. His breathing had changed.
Yeah, he was silent. He was just basically like the absolute opposite of everything that Gowan is. He was very quiet. He was not moving. And he was silent. And I was very distressed because that's all of the things that Jason Gowan never is.
Well, it got real weird because I think we were 15 minutes in, maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
And we're both remarked to ourselves, like, hey, we haven't heard from Jason in a little while.
Yeah, we were scanning objects and just sort of like looking into the other room and checking on him.
And we look out at the couch.
Yeah.
And he's laying there. And both of his hands, he's laying on his back. Both of his hands are stretched up. And he almost they're like in this locked in my mind, in my memory, I remember it being like a claw. But in watching this again, this is 2017.
Yeah.
In watching this again, he looks almost like he's got a Doctor Strange thing going on.
Yeah, he's doing the thing.
Right?
Yeah.
Where his fingers are kind of crooked and...
Yeah. It's the strange thing about it is he's also frozen in the position. So he's laying on his back. For the people who aren't watching it, he's laying on his back. His arms are kind of up and his hands are, like you said, they kind of look like claws a little bit. But he stayed like that. And then I would come back 5 minutes later and his hands might be up a little bit more.
Yeah,
but he was
a little more curled.
Yeah, but he was moving so slowly that it was like I couldn't perceive it because I was doing something. So I'd come back and be like, why is he just laying there still?
Then all of a sudden, he leaps up off the couch, which scares us.
It did scare us.
Rips the mask off his face and yells, I just left my body. And then he runs to the bathroom and projectile vomits.
Yeah, for a good few minutes.
I was nervous.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, God, what happened? What did we do to this guy?
Yeah.
He ended up wearing it for half an hour.
He wore it for I think he's still one of the people who has the highest.
For wearing it.
He's in the top 3 for sure. He was the first person to wear it that long. Absolutely, 100%.
It was real weird.
Yeah.
Real scary.
We didn't know what it meant. We thought it was very interesting, and obviously we documented it because you can see it, but we just didn't. We kind of just went along with it, I guess.
He told us what it felt like. Maybe we can include the video clip here for people if they want to see it.
I felt a warm then the lightheadedness and the pressure on my forehead that I did not feel the first time. And I sat up, but I didn't sit up. I know that I was looking at my hands for a little bit, and then I started to move upwards, and then it went yellow, and I don't remember anything after that.
And we just sort of like wrote it down
Yeah.
to keep the record of it.
Yeah.
But it didn't really get us any closer to figuring out what this mask was or where it was from. Just
No.
what it was doing to people.
Yeah, but it was the first time that we had something to go on.
Yeah, you're absolutely
Because
right.
prior to that, it was interesting. It was strange. It looked a little bit scary, very kind of interesting. We were kind of obsessed with it, but we didn't really know anything about it or what it was used for. Obviously, it's a mask, but we didn't have anything else to go on. So Gowan was really the first person to have that kind of an experience.
Then we started to get some strange EVPs out of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not familiar with an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, the idea that you hold a recorder next to something and there are often voices that will show up that weren't there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
The ones we got with the mask were up.
Yeah. So one of the experiments that we were doing back in the day, we were doing an EVP session with the mask, and I held the recorder up to the mask, and it was something that we were kind of doing back in the day, just testing the idea of like, what if we hold it to its mouth?
Sometimes I would even wear the mask while we did an EVP session.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to that though, because something up happened when we did that too.
Yeah. So the question that I asked was, can you see us? And the answer was, I can see you.
Are you able
Yeah.
to ward off evil spirits? Can you see us?
Yeah. I don't like that.
Said it could see us.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I think in the video too, we started covering its eyes
Yeah.
because they were really uncomfortable to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, now we have Gowan's experience, and we're starting to do some more kind of experiments with it, some traditional experiments with it. And just that EVP session was very interesting.
Immediately, it's one of the most active things
Yes.
that we've ever received at that point.
Sure, because it's doing two different things. One, we're getting evidence from it, but people are also having their own subjective experiences with it, which is, I think, even more interesting most of the time.
We start doing more experiments with this. One of the things that we do in the museum is we have live streams when new stuff comes in, and we do experiments with the museum members. We were doing one of these, still 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
And I was wearing the mask.
That's so weird.
And I was wearing the mask. You were asking questions and things, and I remember very clearly. This is all the other stuff interesting.
Yeah.
But it's when it's happening to somebody else.
Yeah.
It's a subjective experience. You
Yeah.
know, like you never know what somebody else is going through.
Yeah, well, this mask was, at that point on my husband's face. So
Not for long, because I'm wearing this thing and I'm feeling that same weird feeling where I'm like, it feels like it's tugging on me.
Yeah.
There's something happening. It's tugging on me. And then I heard it whisper to me.
Is there something you need? Ah!
What? Oh my god.
You didn't hear that?
No.
Whispered. Whispered in my ear. Gave me the willies. Look at my arms. Oh shit.
What did it whisper?
You.
You?
Yeah.
Like the word you.
You.
But I heard it say, you.
oh my God.
It whispered, you. And I pulled that mask off,
Yeah.
same way Jason did, real quick, and was like, oh, this thing just talked to me.
Do you remember feeling like nauseous or anything afterwards?
I don't think I was nauseous. I remember being nervous.
Maybe you have to wear it for longer periods of time.
It didn't make me nauseous. It made me feel dizzy. It made me feel lightheaded.
Spinny, kind of?
Yeah. It felt like it wanted me out of my body.
Okay. That's all right. Not good.
Not great. I mean,
here's the
anything.
thing. It's probably it's not a great feeling to have in your body.
Well, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
I've never felt that way with anything before. Like we've dealt with things that people are terrified of.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I've never felt like something was trying to get into my body like a hermit crab.
Yeah, that's a bit concerning.
Kick me out of my shell.
Yeah, got to get you out of there.
It was frightening.
It was trying to yeet you out of your body is what it was trying to do.
Well, without it on my face, I was like, well, let's do an EVP session with it. So we set it down, and one of the things that we like to do is we don't like to just like barrage things with questions. We usually start a session by giving like a minute or two of silence and saying, hey, why don't you tell us what you want to talk about?
Yeah, we let them sort of guide the conversation.
Do you remember what the mask said?
No.
Let's just play it.
Do you hear it? Do you hear something? What are you hearing?
It says, hey, I'm gonna like it here.
No, it does not.
Yeah, I don't like that. Can I move this a little closer to you?
No. We have things to say about this.
Okay.
This all will make sense.
All right. It's a journey.
It's a journey, and you're going to lose your mind. Like, one of the things you should know is Connor and I intentionally did not tell Dana
I'm going in
what
blind.
we've discovered about this together.
I'm with you at home listening in your nice, safe space.
You're going to lose it.
Okay.
Too many things make sense, but we were terrified. We were very scared.
Yeah.
If you had trouble understanding the EVP, what we believe it says was, hey, I'm going to like it here.
Nah. No.
Well, it continues because we start taking this on the road with our traveling museum.
Yes.
And people are immediately intrigued and interested in it because even we can't figure out what this thing is for, where it was from, what it was made for. Everybody has all kinds of ideas. But the one thing that they want to do is they want to try it out. They want to wear it.
Yeah.
Especially when they hear that most people can't do it for more than a minute or two.
Yeah.
It's a challenge at that point, right? So people start to wear this thing. One of the ones that I remember that sticks out very clear in my mind is we were on a paranormal cruise. Do you remember? And this is the best part. If you ever want to do weird shit, if you ever want to have a seance on a cruise ship, which we've done numerous times.
We have.
There's one space on a cruise ship you can go to that no one will ever be in. I swear it.
It's hilarious.
The library.
There's no one in the library ever. Ever.
There's not in Paranormal Investigation usually either. We found. It's just us. So we were down in the library because it's the perfect place to hold like a late night seance.
Yeah, all the lights were on. I remember that. People we were in a bit of a fishbowl, and people kept walking by and watching a group of people laying down with a red mask on, and they were just like, what the is going on?
No wonder people think we're a cult.
Yeah.
We're doing weird shit like this.
Could you imagine if you're just a normal person and you like do
three
your
Mai Tais in?
Normal person job, and you're like, I'm going on a cruise, and then you get on the ship, you have to get all your shit on the ship, and you're just wandering around, you just want to relax, and you see a bunch of weirdos in the library wearing masks. I would have been just like, I'm going back to my room.
They did. Nobody came in.
Yeah, we were, yes. No, they did. They were not interested at all.
What was happening to people when they were wearing it?
We had, I don't know, 15 people in there maybe?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, the one thing that I remember distinctly is that when one person would wear it, they really didn't want to give it to another person. There was a weird sense of like ownership over it.
They locked in.
Yeah, they were very like, and like we were all talking about it openly, and people were like, yeah, like I really just don't want to give this to this next person.
Some people were getting angry, which is interesting considering
Frustrated.
the mask looks angry. They would take it off and they would be angry.
Yeah.
Some people were crying, but all of them, the one thing they had in common was they didn't want to give it back.
Yeah.
They would get upset when they saw somebody else wear it. Like, that belongs to me. That's my thing. You shouldn't be wearing that.
Yeah, but then I remember for a lot of them, after a period of time, they were like, that was weird. Remember when that happened? Like, they were really
Once we got away from it,
about it.
like a day or so later, everybody's like, it was not like me at all.
Yeah.
It felt like I was somebody else.
Yeah, yes. I remember that distinctly.
And of course, they all felt like they were being pulled out of their bodies.
Yeah. Yes. And some of them, some of them were people who had practice with remote viewing or astral projection.
It was a paranormal cruise. These are weird people like us.
Yeah, and even for those people, who have practiced the act of doing that consciously, they were aware that like on an unconscious level, they could feel that sort of pull.
There was even one woman who kept trying to get us to let her take it home.
Yeah.
And I knew that if we did, we'd never get it back.
No, yeah.
Because there was this weird possessive thing that was happening. We chilled on the mask a bit after that.
We definitely
stopped
did.
letting people wear it because we noticed the weird effect that it was having on people. It's one thing for people to like volunteer for something willingly.
Sure.
And, you know, have a strange experience and see how long they can wear it. But when people started acting really strange and possessive, and they were saying things like, I didn't feel like myself. That's usually a trigger word for us.
Yeah,
you know, that phrase, when you hear that, you're like, oh, something else is going on here. So we stopped really letting people wear it at that point, and we just kind of kept it behind glass.
And so, like, one of my thoughts was, and we should put our Skeptic Hats on for a second.
Available now at planetweird.store.
I'll put in a picture of one of my animals modeling it right now. And basically what we're thinking is, well, wait a second. What if people are like wearing a mask and that's blocking the airflow, right?
That makes sense.
So
Absolute
like
sense.
you've got too much CO2 like coming in that you're normally supposed to breathe out. That's something called hypercapnia. That's something that like conspiracy theorists will use to like use as an excuse to not have to wear like N95s and surgical masks. And, like, people should. The reality, as the CDC says, in regards to those masks that you're supposed to wear, is that carbon dioxide will collect between the mask and the face, but not in any dangerous amounts and not enough to cause hypercapnia. A mask is designed to trap viral droplets that are much larger than any tiny carbon dioxide particles.
So if it's not working with a N95 mask, I can tell you, as somebody who's worn this mask,
right,
it's not hard to breathe with it on.
So one of the questions was like, well, yes, masks work.
Yeah.
They let things out. Is that mask letting enough out?
Yeah.
It's a block of wood.
I mean,
maybe that's affecting people, but it's also really loose around the edges and it's so small.
And there's giant holes. Like the nostrils on it are huge.
The
mouth
eyes
is
have
huge.
holes,
The eyes
too.
have holes. It's not hard to breathe with it on. I can tell you that as someone who's dared to wear it.
And if it was treated with anything, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, that was the other thing, too.
Right.
We were talking about, like, well, maybe it's fumes, right? Like, maybe it's letting off gases or something from the paint or whatever. But this thing is at least from the 1980s.
Yeah.
It's at least that old. And
it's been around long enough that that's not going to really affect anyone.
And putting it on, and I can also attest, having put it on myself, you can breathe through it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And it doesn't stink anymore. Like, we clean this thing down. Like,
we hose this thing down.
It doesn't, it hasn't for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of the first things we did was clean it off.
Yeah, we would never have let Gowan
So many
even
people
put it on his face if there was anything on it that was dangerous.
And whatever it was that's on it has been gone a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it could be that's making people feel that way, because it's certainly not lack of oxygen.
When the paranormal lurks in every shadow, and each mysterious artifact hides a ghostly tale, one show dares to uncover the truth. The Haunted Objects Podcast. Now you can wear the mystery. Introducing the official Haunted Objects merchandise. Hats, shirts, pins, and more. All designed by independent artists, manufactured by small businesses, and carrying the undeniable essence of the unexplained. Embrace the legend. Wear the mystery. Visit planetweird.store today.
You know, despite everything that we were learning about masks, everything that we were trying to figure out about this mask in particular, there's so many similarities across cultures when it comes to how masks are used, the expressions that are made. It was really, really difficult to find out where this thing actually came from. But you know what? The eyes have it. When I would do reverse image searches on this, when I would Google, red mask, wide eyes, over and over and over again, this same style of eyes.
Interesting.
I couldn't find the same mask.
Yeah.
I found very similar ones. The same exact style of bright, bulbous eyes continue to show up from one particular place. A place called Bali. if you're a Westerner like us and you don't have a terribly great grasp of the world map, the public education system isn't the best here in the US of A. It's an Indonesian island.
I think of it as the Indonesian islands as the location where you have to like cross through it to get to Australia if you're playing Risk. Like it's typically where the battleground happens because Australia's worth 2 points and people can hold on to it really easily.
Yeah,
as an entire continent.
You go, so shout out Risk.
You put up your defenses. Yeah, shout out Risk. So
I feel like Risk is a game that like people played in the 80s. What are you doing playing Risk?
Connor loves board games, man.
High-stakes game.
Listen, if it wasn't for Connor and his Risk playing, we wouldn't know where Bali is.
That's true. It's
underneath
Connor.
India as well.
The really cool thing about Bali, as opposed to the other Indonesian islands, the other Indonesian islands are like 87% Muslim. That's the chosen belief system, except Bali. Bali is where most people believe in a sort of cool syncretic version of Hinduism and their traditional indigenous beliefs. And they've merged those two over time and created this spirituality where there are two very, very important things involved: dancing and masks. In Bali, they practice something that they refer to as topeng dancing, mask dancing. So they incorporate the use of very, very seriously respected, almost, they're holy masks. The entire process of creating these masks is a ritual.
So there's great reverence for this process.
Great reverence for these. They believe that these masks are ensouled by the spirits. They are actually, when they choose the tree, everything that they do to carve the mask, to clean the mask, to cleanse themselves, super, super important. And some of these masks are super old, and people don't normally get to see them outside of particular performances of the topeng dancing, which is mask dancing. And these dances are incredible to see because they are unbelievably ornate. They're often performed in town squares as a spiritual act. People in the crowd become possessed as it's happening. And the really cool thing that I've not really seen anywhere else is the music that they play is actually influenced by the masked dancers instead of the other way around. So they're playing live, keeping up with the masked dancer who is possessed by the spirit that it lives in the mask.
That must give the entire experience such a living vibe. Like it just must feel like a living thing that you're witnessing, not something that's been choreographed or just something that's alive.
That's the thing. They're not choreographed. Yeah. They believe that the spirits in the mask are actually like being channeled from somewhere else, and the mask takes over. They actually sometimes refer to it as human puppetry. And when you watch these dancers dance, you can see the herky-jerky movements of them being moved as if they are puppets. Wow. It is as eerie as it is beautiful, quite honestly. I think Connor even has an old clip queued up so you can see what this looks like.
This is from the 30s.
You can hear the music. The music feels very hypnotic.
Yeah, I have heard some of the music, and it sounds very trance-inducing. It's very alive. The crowd seems to be part of the process, and it seems as if a lot of people are also falling into a trance state.
Bingo.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious right away. Like, you could see people literally joining.
Are you starting to see why Connor and I were getting excited as we dug into this?
Yes, I feel like I'm beginning my journey down the rabbit hole.
These dances were intended to cause mass trance.
Yeah.
People were meant to fall into a trance-like state where something else was flowing through them, where they were leaving their bodies, not just the people in the masks.
So is it a community kind of experience?
It was.
The dancers come out to perform, and other people feel equally as kind of engaged in the process.
There are typically
really
3 types of different dances that they do with these sacred masks. The first type is a history mask dancing, which is sort of meant to teach people the history of the culture. There's the barong mask dancing, which is a kind of a lion mask.
Yeah.
It has influence from Buddhism.
Yeah.
The barong's nemesis is Rangda, a dark witch, which is what we were watching on there. So that one is sort of a sort of historical, religious, spiritual combination there. But the third type is exorcistic dancing.
Interesting.
Which is meant to be performed in town squares, typically by roving troops of dancers who are there to drive evil spirits out of their town.
I love that so much.
What I think that maybe here in the West, the version of that would be maybe like a tent revival.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Where they go from town to town, they drive the evil spirits out.
There's all sorts of subgenres. There's like complicated stories that they tell. It gets very complex very quickly. But one of my favorites was what they call Wayang Wong, or shadow puppet dancing. And that's when we freaked out, because we figured out like that's what they're doing with their hands and everything is mimicking a puppet that is being directed, and that's why the fingers sort of move like this, and why the arms are positioned this way. They're sort of following the line of what a 2D shadow puppet looks like.
Yeah, there's an exact
when
it seems
strings.
Exaggerated almost, like they're intentionally doing it.
And when you look at it, they look as though they're being puppeted, because they are being puppeted, because the spirit of the mask, or being channeled through the mask, is the one driving the performance.
So you're really watching someone being one with spirit and allowing spirit to utilize their body via the mask to perform a dance that inspires people around them to want to also be part of it.
Also fall into trance.
That's really cool.
I want you to take a look at this video of a modern performance of this dance. And I want you to look at how these fingers are working on the dancers, because you can see them. They're doing the dance. I want you to look at the shape of their fingers as they dance and tell me if it looks familiar to you.
Oh, no. Yes, it does. I mean, they even have something on their fingers to extend them so that they're even more exaggerated. So all of this is not choreographed.
No.
This is just coming in the moment.
Not even the music is choreographed.
So
the music is following the dancers.
Beautiful.
The dancers are possessed, and they are doing the dance as the spirit is instructing them to. And part of this with the fingers is showing that they are being puppeted.
Wow.
Look at the hands and tell me if that doesn't look familiar to you.
Are you talking about Gowan?
Jason was doing this.
Yes.
This is what that is. It was influencing him. Jason was literally like, I bet if we had left him a little bit longer, he would have started shaking his hands the same way.
He doesn't know anything about this.
He does. Here's the thing. I haven't talked to Jason in a little while. I think I should call him real quick if he answers. And I want to be like, do you know anything about like topeng mask dances from Bali? We're going on the road.
Woo woo!
Our all-new Haunted Objects live tour is haunting 30 cities across the country, and we aren't just sharing never-before-seen evidence from our spookiest case files. We're asking you for your help in our craziest paranormal experiment yet.
Come and learn why the infamous Dybbuk box is scarier than the demon it's rumored to imprison.
Tag along with us as we reveal how we broke the curse of the Catskills crone.
And learn the shocking truth about ghosts with an experiment that you'll never forget.
Plus, VIP ticket holders get a very special induction into our very real and very serious secret society.
The Sacred Order of the Haunted Object.
All this and more surprises await you when Haunted Objects Live comes to your town.
But don't wait too long, because tickets are already starting to sell out, and we're not taking this show on the road again.
Visit newkirktour.com for tickets and dates, and we'll see you
on... You gotta wait for me.
You came in like half a second. And we'll see you on the road.
We get a lot of stuff in the mail. 9 times out of 10, we don't experience anything. But that last 10% is where things get really interesting. And occasionally, there's 1% that changes the way that we think about haunted objects.
We bind it to the nails,
and we release it.
The Unbinding, now available on Blu-ray. exclusively at planetweird.store.
Hey.
Jason, I have a question for you. You're on the podcast right now.
Oh, no.
Hi, Jason.
Do you know anything about topeng mask dancing?
Nope.
You've never taken like a topeng mask dancing course or anything?
No, I have never done
Indonesian
anything
islands.
of the sort. All my dancing has been mostly exotic.
Have you ever visited Indonesia?
Greg, I have 3 children. We're lucky if I get to the next county.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. What the fuck? What the fuck? By the way, you were possessed once. Okay, talk to you later. Bye. I'll call you after the show.
Wait, what?
You were possessed once. Well, we'll talk about it later. I'll talk to you after the show. Bye.
That's so mean. Poor Gowan is he's still looking at his phone right now, like going, "What?"
The thing is I think he actually was possessed. Like, that's the purpose of this mask. The fact that he's doing those movements involuntarily.
We have to
wore
also,
it for half an hour.
That's what I was going to say. You have to consider that of all the people, at least right away, he was the first person to wear this mask for an extended period of time. Enough time that, let's say, someone potentially who is a mask dancer would be wearing that mask for. So...
Dude.
He's going to be scared when we show him that.
Dude.
Yeah.
I have to call him like right after this because he's probably pacing around.
He's probably pouring himself a
By the way,
drink right now.
you were possessed once by a spirit residing inside of a topeng
but he was
dancing mask.
Here's the thing. He was doing all of the things, so apparently he was doing it right.
That's true.
His feet weren't going.
He did projectile vomit.
Well, you got to get practice.
Yeah, practice. He didn't take the proper ritual preparation.
He wasn't prepared. There are ritual preparations.
There are. We should talk about that. If you wonder why there needs to be so much preparation that goes into the wearing of these masks for these rituals, it's because they don't believe that the masks are a representation of the spirit. Mm-hmm. They are the spirit. They are the God.
So it's an embodiment of that God.
It is a full embodiment.
Which is why they take such care of the masks and why it's such a beautiful tradition that is...
Yes.
Passed down to each other. That's really beautiful.
Some of these masks are so sacred that the public only sees them during times when they are needed to do these rituals.
Yeah, wow.
They are kept in temples. They are made out of special wood. They talk to the wood. They ask the tree if it's the right thing. They show, once the mask is carved and made, they take it back to the tree to show it how it has been reincarnated. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
But these masks are kept covered in special cloths in temples because they are so sacred. There are particular rituals that you have to go into to do these mask dances. This is a quote from a book called Masks of Bali, which is the book, I should say, for the record, we'll talk about it more, the book that cracked this case. Bali being as specific in its religious practices, in its spiritual practices, in its culture, there's not a whole lot of information out there about it that, particularly the mask dances, that isn't tainted by like a Western perspective or tourism or whatever. This book, however, was written by the masters of mask dancing, like the experts. And it was insanely expensive, but my God, was it worth every penny. It's like one of the most beautiful books I've ever laid eyes on. There are 2 volumes. The first volume is all about how these masks are made in the ritual preparation. The second volume is all of the masks that most people will never get to see outside of a temple performance. Connor has the book over there. He has a quote about these rituals and what goes into preparing for one of these mask dances.
Those who perform sacred mask dances do so with great caution and preparation. No dancer would dare begin a performance without performing the necessary rituals, making offerings, and placing themselves into the right state of mind and spirit. To do so otherwise is dangerous and can elicit the wrath of spirits, ancestors, gods, or the Rakshasa demons of the underworld. no pressure. So it's serious stuff.
It is serious stuff.
There's also quotes in here from different masked dancers. And we have some different quotes from dancers as well. One dancer said, "Before we dance with a mask, we need to know that mask. The mask is the one who dances. The dancer is just a blank canvas." That's from dancer Kadek Sudiasa. Dancer Imade Bandam says, "Many dancers will sleep with the mask beside them so that they can learn its true character."
That's such a beautiful thing. I love all of this.
It's so cool. Another dancer, "I don't think about what I will do until I come out from behind the curtain. Then it is easier to feel what the people want and what the mask wants to give them."
So they're truly channeling.
Dana, the Balinese masks are literally, in every sense of the word, haunted objects.
Yeah, yeah.
We take a pretty liberal approach to what a haunted object is on this show, so we can cover lots of other interesting things. But these are, by every definition, haunted objects. The masks are haunted. And it's not a scary thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's only scary if you're not performing the proper rituals and taking it seriously. The Balinese have a very specific term for how they believe that these masks become what we would term haunted. And it doesn't really have a really great English equivalent, but it's a word called taksu. And it is a sort of spiritual power that resides in creative endeavors. So the idea that if your creation, doesn't matter what it is, some sort of artistic creation, if it is imbued with the spirit of the gods, it is known to have taksu. That true creativity that gives something back to the community means that it has taksu. What a cool word.
Yeah.
Another dancer said, "The belief is that when protocol is correctly followed, dancers will enter a trance state that in turn makes their performances spiritually compelling." And this is what happens through taksu. So taksu can apparently be imbued into an object. It's also the sort of the word for a feeling.
Yeah.
It's sort of the word for a company.
Yeah.
Having that. Really, it's the word for the magic.
Yes,
Exactly. Is what it is to them.
Whatever spiritual force that embodies that thing. One of the things that we read in this book is that some people are believed to be born with taksu. People who are really prodigious artists.
Yeah.
Who are making things that are impactful. And we all know when we see bad art, when we see good art, if you see a piece of art and it strikes some kind of emotion inside of you, that piece of art has taksu.
It's inspired.
It's inspired.
It's in spirit.
Bingo. Inspired creativity is taksu. We have a quote about taksu from E. Made Bandam, who is one of the dancers who performs these sacred dances. He says that taksu phenomena can occur in two forms. The first of these is invoked using a magical object connected not only to the sacred, but also to darker regions akin to the subconscious. This object can take many different forms: an amulet, a special mask, or an element of a dance costume. Taksu is also contagious and usually possesses the company as a whole to reach new and commanding heights of artistry. Those inducted into this system of belief are also able to judge the capacity of a mask or other sacred object to receive messages that we might consider vibrations from the supernatural world. The belief is that when the protocol is followed correctly, the dancers will enter a trance state that in turn makes their performances spiritually compelling. Which is why so many people witnessing these dances
feel compelled,
are also filled with taksu. One of the methods that they use to get into this state of taksu is something that you might be familiar with. It's pranayama breathing, which is a yoga technique, right?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I only know Gwyneth Paltrow white lady yoga. So, but breathing's also a technique used in magic. I mean, breath is a source for meditation. It's useful for people who are trying to shift consciousness. So, reflection upon the breath, taking time with the breath, meditation, breath is very important. Spending time with it. It makes absolute sense. And I think it's one of those things that people often underestimate how important breath and breath work really is in all forms of trance and magic, just in general.
I think the idea behind that sort of, pranayama is really what controlled breathing. And the idea is that when you can control your breathing in a specific way, it affects your body in a specific way, right?
Yeah.
The really cool thing about the way they use pranayama breathing is they perform it before they go out on stage. And one of the things they do is they breathe through their nostrils, and they pay very, very close attention to which nostril the air comes out of. Because if it comes out of both, that means that they're balanced and they jump out onto the stage on 2 feet. But if it comes out of the left or right nostril, they lead with either the left or right foot to bring them into balance before the presentation.
It's so interesting because there's what you're saying is that the act of this dance has all of these different layers, some of which are visible. We see them, people dancing, but that the practitioners have rituals that they're doing privately as they do these dances that are they're trained and taught how to do, and there's so much ingrained in the process that it is this sort of living thing that you're witnessing.
If you want to see how this might be backed up by science, there was a study posted on the National Library of Medicine that says some of their studies suggest that asymmetry in nasal airflow, in which most of the flow occurs through one of the nasal passages, may be associated with asymmetry in brain activity.
Interesting. So is it that
their idea of balancing actually has something to do with the mind? That's crazy.
Is it that does the breath follow what's going on in the mind, or is the mind follow what's going on with the breath?
I think their idea is that you can make the mind balanced and follow if you notice how you're breathing.
Yeah, so if you're being conscious of it.
And you're conscious of that, you're being mindful, big part of meditation. If you're being mindful and you notice that, and you're like, oh, I'm only breathing out of one nostril, I'm unbalanced, so I need to start with this foot, which is a reference to this particular spiritual being. And that means I'll help be balanced for the performance. But if you're breathing out of both nostrils, you're balanced, you jump in 2 feet. And it's backed up by science about if you're breathing out of one nostril or the other, guess what? You're probably mentally unbalanced somehow.
All right, so my first question is, after everything that we've just learned, how does our mask relate to that?
Great question.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that we can tell about this mask, going through this book and looking at all the details, is it's not one of the typically sacred masks. They're full of it, and this one doesn't really seem to fit that
Which
mode.
Is, let's just, for the record, say that's a very good thing, because then that means that this wasn't taken from a temple or it wasn't taken from a community. It is not one of those things.
Right.
Okay.
Typically, some of the most sacred masks are either the barong or the ranga mask. Those are the ones that you see in a lot of those ceremonies. It's the lion or the witch.
Okay.
The way that they make those masks is incredibly intense.
Yes, and this one doesn't look like it's had that treatment to it.
I don't think so. There is a treatment. I think it's worth going into because it's so fascinating how they do it. It's basically like their method of haunting an object. As living beings, sacred masks also receive offerings every 210 days. The figure being based on the lunar calendar around which the Balinese religion revolves. So I wonder if that's something that we need to start doing with your mask.
We should be giving it an offering.
210 days following this, whatever that calendar is.
Interesting.
Goes on to say, this is a particularly spiritual, perilous act that occurs in several stages. It is only conducted by those of spiritual power and experience. It begins with a cleansing ceremony that is designed to eliminate any and all forms of spiritual pollution or negative influences that may have accumulated during the mask's making. For example, many mask makers hold the mask between their feet as they work, which is considered unclean and must be remedied. Masks may also be polluted by wrongful thinking or by untoward events that occurred while the mask was being made. In the Balinese cosmos, there are countless evil spirits that are lurking about for an opportunity to create havoc that may have infested the mask. Many things can indicate these problems, such as the mask falling on the ground without cause, strange or unusual phenomena, bad dreams, and scary omens. They're talking about like ghostly activity.
They're talking about haunted objects. How many times have we known that something needs special attention because it's acting strange? We have objects that have given me bad dreams.
Yeah, I mean, like,
and I've immediately gone, oh my God, okay, what do you need? And then we fix the problem. They're talking about how they care for haunted objects.
Yeah. All you have to do is go through any number of letters that people send us along with objects, and it includes half of the stuff that you just said, Connor. Like, the things that people are experiencing are half of the things that you just listed off.
And then what do? We fix the problem.
Yeah.
And it stops doing that.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how weird it is that so many of the things that people have sent us that are doing these exact same things now have like dedicated altar spaces in our home where we give them offerings. They're haunted objects.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, can we touch on the fact that they get upset when they have been mistreated or they have been like on the ground?
Yeah.
There was stuff covering this that smelled bad when it arrived, and the note said, I'm sorry. So we cleaned it off, and it started acting differently.
The book just says, in terms of the way that they clean it up, the rituals that are required are challenging and spiritually dangerous. Failing to complete them can result in disaster, not only for the community, but for the dancers who don the masks in the performances. Only the highest and most awesome masks, which are destined to become village gods, undergo. So there's two separate cleaning things that they go through. But to talk about the highest one, only the highest and most awesome masks destined to become village gods undergo the third and highest level of sanctification. This process involves the recital of mystical incantations as magical symbols of power are inscribed on the backs of the masks.
What did I tell you?
So do you think someone was trying to make one? And then they maybe...
Why don't you keep reading, Connor?
That's interesting.
Maybe they...
This power is living and is in need of constant renewal. They are kept in sacred precincts, usually temples. They're draped with white cloth covered with magical drawings to shield mortals from their fearsome power. These masks receive constant offerings and prayers. For the greater part of the year, these masks remain stationary. For the greater part of the year, they remain stationary. However, during Odilon festivals, they are taken out and placed on temple dais for all to see. They are also carried in processions. We saw that in video of like a parade. They're up on a box, they're carrying it, where they dance with the fire and the fury of the sacred guardians that they are.
Here's the interesting part. They note in this book that a mask doesn't have to be one of the sacred masks to become haunted, to become spiritually empowered. They are regarded as powerful receptacles for wandering spirits. A mask filled with divine energy becomes metaphysically charged. Made from a particular wood that is cut at specific times, these masks are generally associated with a certain number of rituals. However, even art shop masks, those made in an unconsecrated assembly line manner to be sold to tourists, which is what we believe this thing was, have been known to become possessed.
Oh my God.
A former director of Bali's art center has a concise explanation. If you make an attractive home, someone will want to live in it. That is from Masks of Bali by Judy Slatum. So even non-ritually used masks can easily become haunted.
I don't think it has to be. It has to have gone through all these levels because again, that's not a sacred mask. I would really hope not, like you said.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be in temples, covered in cloth, nearly all year long, protected.
They're old too. They're typically very old unless there's something that needed to be made. You know, maybe someone in the town said, we need this protector, and they make the mask. But they don't look like this. Like this has a rubber
it's very modern
strap on the back.
It is modern looking.
There are little shops that people can buy masks in.
Yeah.
And they're made by the mask makers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still made.
Guys
They're still
who do
made.
it.
Yeah. They're just not doing all of the ritual preparation because these are to be sold to somebody. But what if somebody took this mask and tried to make it a sacred mask by putting that carving in the back of it that has some intentional meaning? And because it is created in the style of these masks, took on some of that spiritual power, that taksu.
Yeah.
And then maybe got dangerous because it was mistreated somehow.
Yeah.
And that's why it ended up with us.
I mean, if I'm going to give you the first thing that popped into my mind is someone went to Bali bought this mask, learned a little bit about this process, and said, hey, I'm going to do this myself. And then they did, disrespectfully.
Yeah.
And got scared.
Yeah.
And maybe they did bury it and send it to us in a lake or something. I mean, here's the thing. Putting something in moving water, all of that, these are, I mean, there are lots of different cultures that utilize those types of methods, but it's also very popular in like Western witchcraft.
So we've found all this stunning stuff out about this mask. Like, it's very obvious that this mask is doing something that it was designed to do.
Yes.
It is giving people the types of experiences that are experienced by masked dancers in Bali, like even Jason with the weird hand thing, like doing the same hand gestures. Very, very strange. Obviously, it's haunted.
Yeah.
There's something going on. But the thing we don't know about it is we know where it comes from, but we don't know who this is. Who does this represent?
Yeah.
We flipped through the book. There are, I mean, dozens of beautiful masks all arranged.
Like you said, all masks, they're intentionally meant to be different deities or different spirits. So this is obviously somebody that exists within this pantheon.
Right.
Okay.
We need a detective to help figure this out, right?
Yes.
There's one guy who's better at it than anybody else, and he is one of the co-authors of this book. His name is Imade Bandam. He's a professor. He has his doctorate in ethnomusicology. He was the rector of the Indonesian Center for the Arts. I mean, he's a big deal on the island.
He's been a dancer for like the greater part of a century, 70 years. I think he was taught by his father. It's been passed down. Like, he's the guy that you go to if you need to know anything about Balinese mask dancing.
He wrote this book along with Bruce Carpenter. He's a longtime Bali resident and a Balinese art historian. He's got like 20-something books about art in Bali. He knows what he's talking about as well. They worked together to create this book. It's so insane. This guy is so good at identifying masks that that's kind of how this book exists in the first place.
I mean, we have to stress, again, it is an incredible thing that this book even exists, because before this book, you try to find out anything about Balinese mask making, and you're finding barely anything at all. Like, again, everything's tainted by Western influence. The process of him, there's an interview that Connor shared where he and Bruce are both being interviewed, talking about how the process of this book. The book took like 4 years to make, and they basically had to beg and convince different temples all over Bali to let them in to photograph these masks because they're never, ever allowed to be seen.
They can't take them out of the bag. You're not supposed to take them out of those marked carving bags.
So the opportunity,
unless it's for a reason.
Yeah, the opportunity to photograph them is probably very few and far between.
And the reason, what he would do is he's so good, is that he would dance with the company in some ways in that local temple area, sort of gain their favor. But he's also had the ability where what he described it as, I would trade a photograph for the names of the masks. Because a lot of times these masks are so old that the people who actually live in the village and like work in the temple like don't know who the character is.
Okay.
Because they can't read some of the inscriptions sometimes.
But they understand the archetype that's sort of
they're
connected
possessed.
to them. Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay.
Or
done.
it doesn't, or they just sit there for so long.
Yeah.
And so so the point is he knows who they are.
Yeah.
And so he's like such an expert in this that it's very cool that that's how this book exists. They also tell this story in the interview about how there was like one village that repaints their masks every 45 years, and they really wanted to take the pictures, but they were about to repaint them. And they got a phone call like at midnight the night before. And they said, because they were like, please, before you paint them, can we take pictures of your masks in this particular area? And they got the call like the night before, and them and their photographer ran up to that temple and got the masks out and took those photos. So they're extremely rare to see this. They created this book apparently as like not only just like art history, but also as a reference for mask makers. Because there's a whole bunch of young mask makers who haven't seen these masks because a lot of them were taken off the island.
Yeah.
And so they had to go around the world and collect different pictures. So it's a very, very cool reference. If any single person in the world is going to know who that is, it's Professor Imade Bandam.
The dude is a badass, but he's incredibly hard to track down.
Yeah.
There's no like contact information in these books. I looked everywhere. I couldn't find anything. The way that we tried to reach out to him was the interview that he gave that was really great. It's like 2 or 3 hours long. Was with an online magazine and podcast called Bali Now. We'll put him in the show notes so you can check this out for yourself. The editor, Edward Spears, I reached out to him and I said, hey, I've seen that you've interviewed these guys. I've got this weird mystery, and people love mysteries, right? Like they love it. So I kind of give him an idea and I sent him a photo of the mask. I said, I'm convinced that this is a Balinese mask. I cannot find it in this book. We need to know who this represents. And he forwarded my email to Imade Bandam's son, Marlo. And Marlo is also part of the tradition. He's also a researcher of this stuff. Also, just in case he ever listens to this, great taste in music and a great DJ.
He's got a cool website.
He's got a cool website. Yeah. Really cool guy. And you know what? He reached out to his dad when he got the email, and we literally have the answer to this finally after almost 10 years.
From the source.
From the source. From the guy. I mean, arguably the guys. I got an email from Bruce Carpenter. Like, they didn't just tell us who this is. They made a presentation for us in the style of the book.
Wow.
And told us what the carving means.
Oh my God.
Can you believe it?
Well, what does it mean? You've been teasing me this whole thing.
I know. It's only going to make this crazier. Do you wish you could have weekly episodes of the Haunted Objects podcast? If so, you're in luck because we just launched Museum Mailbag, a companion show where we dive deep into previous episodes' topics, answer your questions about the unexplained, and reveal the secrets of the universe.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. The only way to get the show is to become a member of the Newkirk Museum of the Paranormal. Becoming a member doesn't just support the show, it also gives you access to monthly live-streamed adventures and experiments with us.
And a magical monthly subscription box with live classes about the occult and witchcraft with me.
Plus, you'll get downloadable goodies, exclusive merch, and more.
To join the museum and get your weekly dose of the Haunted Objects podcast and so much more, join us at patreon.com/paramuseum.
So, let's start with who the mask is, okay?
Yeah.
Let's take a look. This is what Marlo had to say after talking to his father. The genre of the mask belongs to the Bondress genre, an essential component of traditional Balinese theater. Bondres, also known as Painasar, I'm sorry if I'm butchering the pronunciation of this, they are comic characters that serve a crucial narrative function in these performances. They act as narrators, helping convey the story to the audience. These characters are essentially clowns.
Oh, so
this is a clown mask.
They're like narrators, though. So are they observing and then conveying it to the audience in like a way that we would understand?
Down to earth way.
Oh, so
think
they're
back to Weary Willie.
I was going to say they're like psychopomps.
Oh, yeah, they're kind of like guides.
Or like way showers.
Sure.
Yeah, like their job is to sort of be half in and half out and to communicate the God's will to the audience.
Once we knew this character, Topeng Buju, which is the facial expression he's making, Topeng Buju Barong. Once we had these words to go off of, we were able to find all sorts of videos.
That's so cool.
Of these things in action.
And you know why we never realized who it was? He's missing his mustache and eyebrows.
Which is what the nails are.
That's what those nails are. There's little nail holes all around it.
It makes so much sense.
And it turns out he's supposed to have a mustache, long mustache and eyebrows. In fact, once we found out who he was, I went out and I was able to find one. There he is. Look at that.
Wow. Can I see it?
Yeah.
Does it have a carving on the back?
It doesn't, because that is a tourist mask. That is not really made for performance.
That is wild.
So he nailed it. That's the guy.
It's the guy.
So is this just a different like different version of this mask?
Yes.
It's so just created by a different mask maker?
They have different expressions depending on different things.
Yeah, I like his mustache.
Listen to this.
He looks like he looks like he comes from the 70s.
Looks like Groucho Marx.
A little bit, yeah.
This guy is a clown. When you think about,
so interesting.
Think back to our clown episode from season 1
Yeah.
where we talked about clowns. What was, Weary Willie always doing?
Yeah.
He was entertaining the crowd in between the major shows.
Yeah, and they're like on the ground with people. They're amongst the crowd. I bet that he probably this character's like right next to the audience, communicating with it.
In all the videos, he's interacting with children.
Yeah, that's cool.
Sometimes he'll pull a kid up onto the stage, and they do a funny little comedy routine together. People are laughing when they're watching this guy out there. And he's like the in-between act,
That's so
in between the really serious, like heavy historical spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
Marlowe continues and says, the duality provides commentary and insight from multiple perspectives, which enriches the storytelling and adds humor to the performance. The comedic nature of Bondre's masks manifests in exaggerated facial features.
Interesting.
Which you can see, the bulging eyes, the lips. The form, he says, we believe that this particular mask is part of the Barong and Rongda performance. The one that we watched, one of the most important ones, alongside, and I'm going to try my best to pronounce this, the Ngalawang procession. Anyway, it's an exorcism of evil from village neighborhoods. So this was part of one of the exorcism performances. This character, he appears sweetly with adorably funny antics, and he becomes a figure that balances out the frightening and noble elements of the performance.
He's a comedy relief.
He's a comedy relief.
Yeah, literally. He's the comedy relief.
Unbelievable.
Why do we always get the clowns?
That's very cool, though.
It's amazing.
And like, here's the thing. Of course it is. Of course that's who it is. He's introducing this information to us the same way that he would introduce the information to people.
Dana.
Of course it would be.
You just gave me full body chills. Like,
Yeah.
what if that's the whole purpose of this is
Maybe it is.
to continue
Sharing that to Westerners, to people from different parts of the world,
I mean, I think of the people, the thousands of people who are going to listen to this podcast who would never, ever...
I didn't know anything about it.
I know, I wouldn't have. If this mask hadn't come into our lives,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have ever seen the beauty of Balinese mask dance, and
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with it now. It's gorgeous. The way that they handle their masks has given me ideas on how we should be treating some of the artifacts that show up here.
It's very
and
inspiring.
appeasing them. What a wonderful, beautiful thing. You're so right. He's still doing.
Yeah, he's just doing the same thing. He's down in the audience going, hey, you know what these guys are doing over here?
Oh, my God.
They're doing dances.
Well, here's the part that is the best part. Marlowe even deciphered the symbol. Marlowe thinks he knows what the symbol means.
Oh, man.
He believes that it's not the carving of a mask maker. Sometimes they are carved and signed by the mask maker.
Like it's just a general signature, kind of.
Yep. He doesn't believe that it's a mask maker's mark.
It doesn't look like one, yeah.
He thinks that the plus sign that's on that mask represents the male principle, possibly embodying the male deity Shiva. The dot symbol, he believes, represents the female principle,
Shakti?
perhaps Durga or Dui Uma. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The curvy lines he interprets potentially as either a sperm or as an umbilical cord that is connecting the mask to the gods.
Very interesting.
The earth to the heavens, symbolizing birth and rebirth, connecting the life-giving essence of the two principles.
Wow.
He thinks that it speaks to the Balinese concept of Ura Bineta, the principle of harmonious duality, the union of energies as seen as the source of all creation, prosperity, and balance in the universe. Is that not one of the most beautiful things?
Yeah. I mean, it leaves me thinking that it is likely someone who understands those symbols, who would understand what those symbols would mean.
I think it was probably made and whoever made the mask was a Balinese mask maker.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's his signature per se, it just sort of makes sense to put a spiritual carving inside the mask that he's creating.
Yeah. And maybe there was something special about it. Maybe it was one that he really liked, or one that he gifted to someone, maybe. I mean, I'm speculating, obviously, but...
We also heard from Bruce. He was the co-author of this book, a fantastic source on this. They reached like the same conclusion, saying this is the Bondres clown genre. Bruce speculates that based off what he's seen from so many painted masks, that's from the 1980s.
Okay. Yes.
And it was probably made more along the tourist lines, but by a Balinese mask maker. They even specifies, and Marlowe does as well. He's like, well, that looks like the kind of style that comes from this village or this village.
Okay, so they were
right down to the village.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that it was created likely for like a tourist that was coming to visit. Okay, got it.
It took us almost 10 years to figure out what this mask was.
Yeah, that's crazy. I can't believe it's been that long.
And as Connor and I were digging into this stuff, we were like sending each other stuff back and forth. Connor's just seen me like walk around the room with my like head in my hands going, oh my God, oh my God. Partially because I can't believe that we actually found out what we found out, and so much of what people have experienced with this mask we have seen in Balinese mask dancing.
Yeah.
But also because I now understand why it was doing those things, why it was having that type of effect, and I have a new appreciation for the actual beauty of these things.
Yeah, and is it something that you can take and apply to other potential situations like this one now? Do you have like...
Absolutely.
It's given you new context, so now you can contextualize experiences that you'll have in the future with other haunted objects.
100%. The idea of, what are we doing on the tour?
Yeah.
The idea of the tour is we're trying to create haunted objects.
Yeah.
Seeing the way that they took such care and reverence of these masks, and the ideas that, you talk to the tree, you find the right things, you do things in a ritualistic way in order to be more closely connected to the gods, to the spirits, is unbelievably helpful to us doing what we do with haunted objects. Everything they experience with an upset mask that hasn't been treated well is the type of things that we experience with all kinds of objects that people send us all the time.
Yes.
One of the things that I hope that the listeners take away from this is that relentless curiosity in the face of fear can show you the real beauty of the world. We have a problem in the West that is our concept of what possession is a scary thing that is based out of Christianity.
Yeah.
We're told through things like, The Exorcist, that being possessed is a bad thing. But that's here. There are so many other places where that is the closest you can get to your spiritual beliefs.
Yeah. There's so many different cultures that utilize aspects of possession in their ritual dance, in their rituals just in general. And they have a much healthier connection and understanding of what that relationship is versus the Western world.
In The Unbinding, the film that we just put out, you have a really great conversation towards the end of the film where you talk about how sometimes things that are meant to be life-changing are scary.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make them bad. And people get upset, so why wouldn't a spirit get upset? If you're being mistreated, are you going to get upset?
Of course.
I mean, I've seen you be upset. It scares me.
I'm a Leo. I can't help it.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to be like, oh no, this is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Grab the crucifix.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of Dana.
Yeah.
I see that so much when in terms of haunted objects within, the realm of the paranormal, at least here in the United States and, in the Western world, in Europe even, in England. The idea of haunted objects as being things that are supposed to be, feared or combated because they're evil, because they're doing what anyone would do if they're being disrespected.
Yeah.
What a terrible way to look at these things.
Yeah, it is pretty deranged, honestly.
And now I have such an appreciation and understanding of what this mask was used for. The fact that it's not like one of the bigger, like sacred characters. First off, thank God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
That would not belong here.
I mean, it would immediately. I would find someone to take this, you know, to wherever it belongs, to a temple or something. But to find out this is a tourism mask that's based on an integral character of some of those exorcism dances that is the comedic relief.
I mean,
what better thing to show up and teach us these things?
Yeah, for people who love to laugh, it's kind of the perfect scenario.
Yeah, I mean, we always say laughter is the best exorcism.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, have a good time, but be curious. If you are choosing to be curious instead of choosing to be afraid, you will be introduced to so many wonderful, incredible things all around the world. It'll help you out so much. And, you know, it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
If you don't know what something is, somebody out there does know. And you can ask them and they'll tell you, and that'll help deepen your appreciation. I hope that anyone out there who might be, you know, watching this or listening to this, if there is, you know, something particularly from another culture that you've seen that frightens you, maybe try and figure out why that frightens you.
Yeah.
One of the things that we see all the time is people find, this happens particularly with African idols. You know, some of them have nails. Kisi figures have nails nailed in all of them, and they look very stern and sometimes frightening to the uninitiated.
Yeah.
But when you realize what they're used for, they're warding, a lot of the things that are scary are meant to be scary, so they're warding off bad spirits. They're protecting you.
First of all, to judge it by its appearance is completely
Judging
incorrect.
anything by its appearance is a bad idea.
But you miss out on the opportunity to experience another culture's deep tapestry of you know, information, and that's so valuable and useful as people, specifically as people that live in the Western world. We should want to know more about the world outside of the West.
You know what kind of sells me on it? That like there is some sort of reminiscent, I don't know, full possession, but some sort of reminiscent energy in there. Is Jason doing that?
I mean, that is
God,
unannounced,
kind of undeniable.
We've watched so many videos.
You want to know what's funny?
It's the same hand motion.
Like I said, we've been working on this for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And we had to take a little break because Connor got sick. We didn't notice the hand thing till this morning when we were reviewing the videos that we were researching for this. And because I hadn't watched that video of Jason in 2017 in years. And when I saw what his fingers were doing, because in my mind, I saw him like doing a claw. That's how I remember it, like a claw.
I remember him doing the Spider-Man thing.
It looks a bit like Spider-Man or Doctor Strange.
But I don't remember his hands. I remember his hands being different. I don't.
Yeah.
Seeing it again, like you said, it's been many years. Seeing it again now, it looks very, very similar. Like he was doing something very similar.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That was that close. I mean, you can compare the video clips. If you watch the video podcast, you can see the same exact hand gestures being done in one of their like human shadow puppet performances.
It's spooky. I know that this is like
so weird,
but
the spooky part about it is how similar those were. Coming from somebody who has no exposure to Bali at all. To me, it says there's something residing in this mask.
Yeah.
And we should treat it with the level of respect that it deserves.
Yeah. I mean, also, consider that Gowan went into that with just to lay down and meditate and see what happens. Like, it's not normal for people's arms to rise up while they're in meditation and for them to do wiggle their fingers around and stuff. Like, people don't normally do that in meditation. I know Gowan's meditated before. I know he knows a little bit about it. Like, that's very strange.
The number of people who felt something.
Yeah.
Feel like they didn't feel like themselves.
Yeah.
They didn't feel like
pulling
themselves.
Something.
They felt like the expression on the mask. They felt something pulling them out of their body. Turns out, maybe it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's just that the mask is doing its job, what it was made to do.
It's got Taksu.
It's got Taksu.
The first time that you do any kind of like astral projection or any of that kind of stuff, it feels very strange. It's a very abstract, strange thing to experience. So it makes sense that's, if you've never done anything like that, you put this mask on and it starts to help sort of lubricate that part of your brain a little bit and get you into that state. probably is sort of a distressing feeling.
Yes, of
Makes
course.
total sense.
If you don't know what's happening, and you aren't prepared for it, like you're supposed to be, you haven't gone through the proper preparations.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense that after the fact, Gowan wore it for 30 minutes. His body was kind of distressed. He just was going through something interesting and strange, and he immediately, he barfed. He froed up.
Can handle this.
I froed up.
But how many people probably do the same thing when they're attending these dancing ceremonies?
Oh, sure.
That are intended to send people into trance.
Yeah.
We watched the videos.
Yeah.
Anywhere from the 30s to like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
There's wonderful conversation as well with Imari Bandam, where he says that that sometimes even in tourist performances, he enters into a trance state.
Wow.
Because there's not that much of a difference to him.
Sure.
And though that's not really the purpose to channel that taksu, sometimes those are just the motions and it just kind of happens, which kind of makes sense as well in that regard. So it's really impressive. What I think, what's so interesting that you say that I think you just kind of passed by, but you said like a lot of people in the face of fear.
Yeah.
Right? And that was, for a long time, a face of fear.
A face of fear. I didn't even think about that.
And now it's sort of figuring it out and respecting it.
Yeah.
And it's telling its message to the people just like it's supposed to.
He's just doing his job. He's trying to make people laugh.
What a banger episode. I am so stoked that we finally got this mystery solved. We owe a humongous debt of gratitude to the authors of Masks of Bali, not just for creating this book that, is an unbelievable reference for anyone with an interest in these, but also for taking the time to look at our mystery and help us solve it. So humongous thank you to E. Madi Bandam, Bruce Carpenter, Marlo Bandam, and Edward Spears from Bali Now for being interested enough in this weird mystery to help us solve it. Now we know how to treat this mask and pretty much any haunted object. And that is why the Restless Face is a haunted object. Actually, wait, hang on a second. Before you click off, before the credits play, Carl, we are taking a mid-season break. We will be back in November. We're going to be on the road. We have a 30-city tour, Haunted Objects Live. Go to newkirktour.com for dates and tickets. We're doing something insane. If you enjoy the show, come see this live. We are not only going to tell you a lot of spooky stories, we're going to give you our thoughts on how objects become haunted. And once we teach you that, you are going to help us create 2 haunted objects. If you want to know what these objects are and you haven't seen it yet, go to newkirktour.com because you're going to lose your fucking mind. We need your help. Come out to the tour. Help us haunt these objects. So let's dethrone Annabelle. Help us create the actual most haunted objects in the world. They will be by the end of this tour, I promise you, with the things we have planned. But don't worry, we do have one very special episode halfway between the midpoint, between the first part of the season and the second. We will have a special episode that has some special surprises in it. You won't want to miss it. Make sure that you are subscribed and stay tuned and come see us on tour if you miss us.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll let you know is if you are a museum member, we will continue to do museum mailbag while we're on tour, and we're going to give it to you every week. So you will get an episode every single week. If you're a museum member, you can join at patreon.com/paramuseum. It supports our work, keeps the podcast going. And
we'll see you in November.
See you in November, everybody.
Bye.
The Haunted Objects Podcast is hosted by Greg and Dana Newkirk, produced by Connor J. Randall, with cinematography and editing by Carl Pfeiffer, and features exclusive artifacts from the Newkirk Museum of the Paranormal. To learn more about the artifacts featured in this episode, take part in live interactive experiments, and enjoy exclusive Haunted Objects content, become a museum member at patreon.com/paramuseum. This has been a Planet Weird production for Spectre Vision Radio.
Wigs can also be, they're masks for your head.
That was wig is a mask for your head.
That was one of the smartest things you said.
It's true. It's masking what's really going on here.
That's true.
Mask
I've never
for
thought of
your
it that
head.
way. Quite the philosopher, Dave.
Yeah, I tried. Masks or wigs are really just a mask for your
I
head.
think